Hi, Dan Stein. Welcome to another Facebook premiere. Here we're going to be talking with R.J. Hauman, who's, of course, FAIR's Government Relations Director. The Swamp Report. Going to bring you the latest and the update of what's happening here in Washington, D.C. Could be happening, should be happening, not happening, but ought to be happening. It might happen. Per country caps. We hear a lot about what's going on at the border. We hear an awful lot about illegal immigration. We hear a lot about asylum fraud and abuse and people coming in through caravans that have been orchestrated by traffickers. We hear a lot about smuggling. We hear a lot about fraud. We hear a lot about internal abuse. We hear about visa overstays. We don't see much getting done about these things. But Congress does seem to have time to bring their attention to something that folks mostly are not really paying attention to. And that is a little-known bill that passed the House recently that would do something that really violates the whole spirit of the diversity promises of the 1965 immigration law. It would dismantle the old per-country caps, or so-called limitations per country, in the visa allocation process. Now, why is that in the law? It was put in the law to try to assure that no single one country would dominate the visa flow, who would hog all the visas. Tried to ensure that there was equal opportunity from people all over the world. Now, unfortunately, because we've had so many foreign workers coming in from certain countries, in particular India and China, there is a well-financed and influentially underwritten effort to remove the per-country caps for those particular countries, for the countries that are sending in the most foreign workers. Now, by way of background, before RJ gives us an update on the bill, let me just explain that back in 1990, these temporary foreign worker programs were introduced for the purpose of short-term, unforeseeable visa or labor shortages until they could find Americans and train them up for the job. This was conceived at the dawn of the computer industry before the internet, 1990, 1989, 1990. No attention was paid to the 90 bill, despite FAIR's best efforts, and they put in this program called H-1B. Over the years, what was supposed to be a temporary program has actually turned into a process of railroading American workers out of these industries, decreasing wages, destroying working opportunities. We see Americans wholesale getting laid off and fired by employers to bring in these foreign labor recruits, many of whom are engaged in technology transfer and then take that money back home, but in other cases want to stay. And now, as a result of the corruption of these foreign labor programs, so many of them have been here for a sustained period of time that their employers are now pushing Congress to try to help them get green cards, because the per-country limitations on China and India have produced these very long backlogs. And FAIR has weighed in, and you can find it on our website, a variety of materials on why we should retain the per-country caps, what they're all about, why they're important in limiting the overall immigration flow. And yet Congress, the House, just yesterday, this is a Thursday when I'm talking, so Wednesday, went ahead and considered the bill H.R. 1044. And RJ, take it up from here. What happened?
Yeah, H.R. 1044 is the Fairness for High-Skilled Immigrants Act. It was introduced by Zoe Lofgren, who's the Immigration Subcommittee Chair on House Judiciary.
Zoe Lofgren, immigration lawyer, Silicon Valley, does the bidding for the cheap labor interests of the high-tech companies.
No one's closer to big tech than she is. And she was joined by the Immigration Subcommittee Chair from the Republicans, the minority highest-ranking member, Ken Buck. And they were both leading this effort for this bill. Now, this thing was fast-tracked. It was never considered by the committee. It was never marked up.
There were no hearings. We had hearings?
No hearings,
so
no nothing.
A lot of input from groups like FAIR in the legislative process?
It was totally fast-tracked.
Does anybody know this?
There's never been a hearing on this bill. Even this bill, when it was considered in 2011, it was also fast-tracked in a similar way. So right now, nobody's had a chance to weigh in.
Under the swamp. This little alligator bill is moving through Congress without a nary a ripple, while we focus on Jeff Epstein's sexual picadillos from 2 decades ago, right? This is happening out of public view.
Yeah, they're trying to fundamentally alter our legal immigration system, but yeah, they're not going through the regular process like they should. And it's even more ridiculous that they're doing this and trying to alter our legal immigration system at a height of a border crisis that we have right now. This is the only thing they care about.
Why would they want to pay attention to the border crisis when they can be sopping this stuff for their big high-reeling donors?
They care more about the tech and foreign outsourcing companies that are pressuring them and donating them a lot of money than they do addressing the key immigration issue right now, which is happening at our southern
I
border.
thought Democrats cared all about American workers and wages.
If they cared about American workers, they wouldn't be rewarding these companies. It's a slap in the face to victims. A lot of American workers who got replaced or had to train their H-1B foreign replacement. These people are being rewarded. The companies that don't care about American workers are being rewarded as well. And again, now few, if any, individuals who will come into our country via the legal immigration system, if this thing is ever signed into law, will come from countries other than India and China. That's not how our system is meant to work, to benefit only two nations and industries that rely on people from those two countries.
But you said if it's signed into law, what's going to stop this bipartisan screw job except the president?
Well, no, again, here's another big deal here as well. We got to consider this as well, is that there's a push for this in the Senate. It's Mike Lee and Kamala Harris are behind this thing. Fortunately, we can't see President Trump rewarding.
Why does Mike Lee care about this? Utah. He's from Utah.
Mike Lee's great on immigration enforcement issues as well, but this is something that they're behind over there now.
Why does he support it? Why?
Yeah, he supports it again because he views it as an essential
the money.
change.
What goes on?
I mean, I'm not familiar with that, but he supports the bill overall. Now, the one good thing he is doing on this front is Senator Rand Paul in the Senate wants to have a carve out for nurses to be eligible for H-1B visas and other things as well. Now, Mike Lee's fear is that now other occupations are going to want to get a part of that. So now you could have people from all these other industries trying to get extra visas and things like that, which could blow this whole thing out of proportion and end up in an increase.
There are limits on the number of H-1B visas, aren't there?
Correct. This could end up in an increase or other occupations becoming eligible for
But
that.
over time, we wind up with millions of H-1B workers in the country.
Right.
Even though there's an annual cap, the numbers grow as they get extended.
It doesn't become a temporary guest worker program anymore. It's you are now getting your ticket to a potential citizenship
So it's like
down the
a
line.
pig and a python coming in through. Then when it hits the numerical limitations for permanent visas, that's why they're pushing this bill through, then blow the lid off the cap.
Right, absolutely. Now, again, as you said, the bill did pass yesterday, 365 to 65. Only 7 Democrats voted no. The rest were Republicans. Actually, 2 members of Republican leadership even voted no on it, Steve Scalise and then Lynn Cheney, the conference chair. Now, this is an improvement on 2011 when the same or a similar bill passed 384 to 15. Only 15 people voted against it. So a little improvement there, and we know we put out an activist alert encouraging all of you to urge your members of Congress to vote no on this. Put American workers first. Don't benefit foreign outsourcing companies and the big tech lobby. I mean, these people are pumping money.
Didn't he campaign on like stopping this kind of abuse?
No,
The
absolutely.
people who come here temporary as foreign workers have to go home.
No, absolutely. And
when it's time to go.
The administration was too quiet on this, and that's something that we're conveying to them as well. They should have been opposing this on Capitol Hill, using their legislative affairs program. The president should have said something in opposition to this as well. And again, we're hopeful that, again, if this starts to move a little bit more in the Senate, if Rand Paul stops holding it up and they maybe move forward, that the administration will say, hey, we do not support this as a policy, and we'd veto it down the line.
Well, what are we hearing about who's lobbying for it? We hear there was a big avalanche of, the chamber and the big marauding Wall Street business groups.
Oh, you had every immigration organization that's on the opposite side of We Are Forward.us, or the groups like that. Naturally, they're taking the side of the guest worker increases and the tech lobby. But then, yeah, you had big tech companies.
And all this is because American workers coming out of college are making way too much money?
No,
and they have way too many job opportunities?
Yeah, this is something, these programs themselves, they harm American STEM workers, kids that are graduating from college.
So why don't these bleeding heart liberals in Silicon Valley care about the American worker?
That's a great question to ask. I agree. But again, yeah, a lot of these big tech companies too, they pump so much money into the wallets of a lot of these members of Congress so they can run for re-election, so they can have these seats forever. Google, Microsoft, then you have the Chamber, National Association of Manufacturers, the Internet Association. All these people were lobbying so hard on Capitol Hill, and we tried from our side with a more limited resources and smaller group, but we were out there fighting for the American worker.
We got the people, so forewarned is forearmed, right? So there's still a chance in the Senate to try to slow this sucker down.
Yeah.
Right? What do people need to do?
No, and I will say in our Fair Take email, we're going to send this out as well. That will come out on Friday. We're going to have a list in there. You can see if you're a member of Congress, your representative, if they voted for this or they voted against it and want to protect American workers down the line. And then you call them up. You weigh in on it. We'll include the Capitol switchboard number down there. If you don't even know your member of Congress's number, you put in your zip code, it connects you right there, and make your voice heard. Say, hey, you should be standing with the American worker. If you're doing anything immigration related, address the border crisis. Don't do giveaways to foreign outsourcing companies and big tech.
Issue 2, okay? So, Democrats in the House weren't able to decimate immigration enforcement in the supplemental border appropriations bill. So now they're taking aim through the defense authorization package, as well as, I guess, a new freestanding bill that basically contains all the things they didn't get when they tried to defund the border wall, right?
Well, the National Defense.
What are they up to?
Well, the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, this passed every year. This is how you fund the military, defending our country. The Senate actually passed a bipartisan version of the NDAA that wasn't loaded with all this Democrat immigration garbage. But however, this one is the House version. They're considering it this week. It already contains negative immigration provisions, including language that prohibits any defense money to be used on wall construction or any other physical barrier along the southern border. That's just the underlying bill that came out of committee that's going to the floor. But what are they doing this week on the floor? They're considering about 400 amendments, and some of them are absolutely insane, and they're led by AOC and her crew of people over there that want to abolish DHS and do every open borders thing out there.
How can a freshman representative have so much clout?
A lot of followers on Twitter, and she's young, she'll be up here
Nancy
forever.
Pelosi said no, she's only got 4 votes.
Yeah, these are big things though that are going to make the Democratic Party look very insane on this issue. Let me run through these 4 amendments that are likely going to be attached to the bill. I can't see Democrats opposing them.
Do any of these do with asylum?
Yeah, well, the first one will prohibit the president from deploying any troops to the southern border if it's to enforce our immigration laws. So again, a lot of people are cool with our troops going abroad to defend the borders of other countries,
well, sure,
but not our very own.
Pakistan's
of course.
border, right?
And then the second one would prohibit the president from using authorized funds to detain any immigrants at DOD facilities. Obviously, for detention purposes, we don't have the space or the facilities down there at the border.
Well, they're trying to stop all detention. Detention is very important as a deterrent, right? Detention and summary procedural process, quick repatriation, very important in stopping fraudulent claims.
Yeah.
Democrats oppose all detention.
Yeah,
right?
all they want you released into the interior of the country where your case will take 3 years.
Just
of
let
course.
them all in.
They want you to put on an ankle bracelet, cut it off, and you get released into the interior of the country. Another amendment prohibits DOD from housing any foreign nationals that are detained by ICE in the country. So anytime we need more space, we can't rely on another part of the government like the military, which has many facilities over our country, a lot of people too that serve our country. We can't rely on them at all. And then another big thing as well, and I know you're familiar with this as well from the time even before I got here to FAIR, which is parole in place. They have an amendment in here that allows anybody's spouse or family member that's serving in the military, they're eligible for parole in place under the INA. This actually codifies that.
Parole in place just means you're not going anywhere.
Right. And no, and
What
again,
about asylum? Anything on asylum?
there's none in asylum on here. A lot of
But
that
I think
stuff.
on the freestanding bill there is.
Correct.
It's becoming very clear there's a thin line between asylum and insane asylum, which is a lot of what we're seeing coming out of House Democrats right now. Their proposals are unworkable.
Right. No, and
did we get a scoop on Elizabeth Warren's immigration plan?
I haven't seen it yet, but again, it's just part. All she's doing is adhering to the new party orthodoxy.
The new party, but she's recycling old stuff, warmed over, ignoring the best thinking of the last 40 years, coming up with new failed, unworkable policies that have been proposed before. This idea we have to fix the entire world before we can control our borders. I would love to fix the entire world, but I don't think we have to do that in order to control our own borders. She decimates detention, dramatically expands asylum, destroys interior enforcement, wants to create a brand new independent Article 1, which would be an executive branch-based independent immigration court, and you and me and all of America's taxpayers have to pay for an elaborate independent immigration court for an unlimited number of people who want to come to this country and try to make various fraudulent immigration claims, some legitimate, but mostly fraudulent, without any idea how much it would cost, plus a mass amnesty for everybody here illegally, plus their relatives. Again, no idea what this would cost in terms of additional welfare use or other burdens, social service programs. No projection of the downstream virtual tidal inflow of people coming across the border as a result of her policies, while at the same time blasting everything the president and his administration are trying to do in divisive, bombastic rhetoric that can't help but further disunify the nation.
One general thought on this as well, and the Democrats and everything they're doing, all their crazy open borders policies that are now every presidential candidate's taking one, they act like it's all in a humanitarian purpose. It's all because we need to treat people better. If you care about humanitarian purposes and you care about these migrants, their health, their safety, you care about the trip that they take up here where they're exposed to human smugglers, traffickers, cartels. That's the most dangerous thing before they get here. It's not us at the border harming these people. If you really want to keep them safe, you turn off the magnets that are having them come up here, these immigration loopholes, things that are making them pay smugglers and all these criminal organizations. Heck, the situations in these Central American countries are even safer than they were 5 years ago. The crime rates have dropped. This is all an economic thing for them.
They're better
coming
off
up
there
here.
than Chicago. But look, everybody wants the children to be safe. We all want them to be safe.
course.
But the reality is, politicians are exploiting juveniles for political benefit. And we've seen that since the so-called DREAM Act was developed in 2002 by Senator Durbin. And this business of trying to isolate and use children, put them in harm's way, if you will, has been the genesis of a lot of mischievous political activity now we've seen mostly on the left side of the aisle, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. Stop politicizing immigration. Democrats have said, we're going to use the whole thing about kids in cages through the campaign. Obviously, they're trying to find a way to counter the fact that President Trump enjoys broad popular support for his positions overall on immigration. This is not the way to do it. We need to stop the smugglers and others from abusing kids and bringing them up here in the first place. They wouldn't be put in harm's way if the various politicians hadn't set up procedural advantages that encourage traffickers to use minor children to bring them here in the first place.
It's our laws we need to change.
What we need some grown-ups in the room, and we need some politicians who would stop playing football with this very important political issue, because in the end, it's why you support FAIR. We bring you the truth. We bring you the facts. A lot going on, a lot of progress being made. Trump's going to try to put that census question back about citizenship. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We've been prevailing on some key lawsuits. We'll be talking about that later. Got to keep the fight going, and you certainly ought to let your senator know you oppose the bill that would remove the per-country cap on immigration. Per-country cap is the key phrase. They will know what you're talking about, and they will be surprised that you even heard about it. But you heard about it here at FAIR. Thanks to RJ here, my good friend. I'm Dan Stein, and thank you for joining us.